The term sustainable development, according to the United Nations and the Gru Harlem Brundtland Commission, who wrote this book called Our Common Future, is the development that meets the needs of the present, but doesn't sacrifice the needs of future generations. It's not about the abundance
these unelected officials. This is what they plan.
It's about creating scarcity, using fear-mongering tactics. One is, man-made anthropogenic global warming, or that farmers and ranchers are using 70% of the world's water for agriculture. These things are not true, but we're being told that, our cars' emissions, as we drive our cars around, are causing so much degradation to planet Earth.
You've heard that horse shit
within
before.
10 years, by the year 2030, we all must live sustainably and live a sustainable development lifestyle and get out of our cars and walk, bike, and take public transportation and be happy about it.
And wait forever to charge the car you do have.
To save the world from people like you and me.
And of course then, they did decide that yes, everything that human beings are doing now does compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And so the General Commission said to the World Commission on Environment and Development, well, can you come back in 5 years with the action plan to implement sustainable development worldwide? And that is
welcome to 2025.
Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Bear in mind,
2025 is going to be a big year, y'all.
Real estate development. And recall what we said about the UN's ideal for real estate. Only governments and the power elite get to own it. To them, that's what is sustainable. Their ownership.
What it really means is
and
control
requires
of the environment, protecting the
something to be under your skin to make sure you're in line.
The situation is
get in fucking line.
One of the interesting things about doing that is that the environment does not follow political boundaries. Rivers run through a whole lot of towns. So sustainable development is a scam that's set up to pretend like it's government. And what it does is eliminate political boundaries. And that means we're losing our liberty, and we're changing our system of government. We're losing our ability to elect our local officials.
As if the elections were real anyways. None of what you see is real. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Merkakadash. Double honors the elders and apostles, a great millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yahakians out there in the four corners of the earth proclaim this truth. Bracket the Yahweh, Bracket the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Merkakadash, Bracketum. So, well, I usually don't do celebrity stuff, but this one is pretty big, because, he was the voice of Darth Vader, right? Alex Jones responds to the death of James Earl Jones, which is mostly known for Darth Vader. But I could also mention Mufasa, which the Lion King is very spiritual, in and of itself. Because, hey, we are the lion of the tribe of Judah, right? Yahweh Shai has that title, but we are the tribe of Yehuda, which he was the lion, right? So you get into the Lion King and see how spiritual this is, right? So that's something else in and of itself. But nonetheless, though, we were meant to be kings, and Yahweh Shai being the King of Kings. See, Esau knows that. That's why they sort of put that out there, And of course, they have Jake to play this parts. They show you truth and secrecy, right? Alex Jones playing globalists lack faith and understanding. Disturbing. Is your destiny. So like everything else, though, this is a little spoof on it, but thought it was interesting enough,
James Earl Jones has just made the jump into hyperspace. He played King Lear, he played Darth Vader, and I always thought in the interviews I saw with him on PBS, other places, he was very, very intelligent, had an amazing work ethic. And I was just thinking the other day about him. For some reason, I hardly ever think about him. I saw a clip of him online. I thought, man, James Earl Jones is I went and looked it up, 93 years old. He's tough. Wonder how long he'll live. And boom, gone. So just an example of how life is so precious and how each person's different. And the art, the culture, the literature, the love, the passion.
There's something else with James Earl Jones I'll say in a minute.
It's amazing. And AI can't replace humans. It just shows us our art, our culture back at us in an amazing way. And so we feel like it's God or something. Well, we're not God. It's not God. But we are the thing that's building the AI. It is basically plagiarizing us. So that makes us superior to it. But humans can do incredible things, or we can live down in the gutter. And that's why, for me, it's really important to understand that AI can't see a sunset. It can't appreciate the Rolling Stones or Beethoven, you can't appreciate your 4-year-old playing Mary Had a Little Lamb on the piano. This is the human process, and the globalists say they want to replace humans. They say that we're obsolete because the machine can do it better. But it's not about what can, quote, do something better, what can build a building faster. It's about the human experience and this long, endless, mysterious compendium that we're part of the past, present, and future. Really, the timelessness of just one moment expanding the universe in God's consciousness, giving us consciousness to experience that with God. So James Earl Jones' spirit lives on here in the third dimension, and of course, he is a spirit that was inhabiting a body. Even the mathematics and science show that our genetic form is just an imprint, or basically a bodysuit the spirit comes into, but our bodies themselves are a composite of all of our ancestors, and itself is its own composite colony creature, but it doesn't have a soul, but in a way, it lives forever as well, as long as there's a human spirit, because it is a composite of all the humans that came before us to give us an owner's manual on this planet, what we call instincts or ancestral memory. So even the machine we live in has its own life and its own system, and as long as humans aren't extinct, that continuum of the genetics continues as well. So there's a lot of layers to all of this.
And most of all, James Earl Jones was an Israelite. I mean, you know, I was going to say, though, that James Earl Jones also did the New Testament in voice, because you could actually look it up, and they might actually have some of it. You know, I'll look it up. So I'm just going to look this up, because he also did an audio for the New Testament, and it just happens to be KJV as well. So that's something else, you know. I don't know if they have any of this on YouTube, but you know, I have it somewhere, you know, on some CDs, but just try to see if I can look that up. And this thing's freezing. I mean, normally it would just swing and go there, but when I'm in record mode, that's when Esau be fucking with shit, right? Oh, let me try it again. Goddamn devil. Yeah, leave it to Esau to do that. Look at this shit. Okay, there it is. Alright, finally. Yeah, see? Now it's there. It's available. Complete Holy Bible audio. You can get it for like $20. James Earl Jones does the voice. You know? Reads the Bible. I mean, what better voice, right? I mean, he has a perfect voice. Ah, here we go. So, here's some of it. I mean, we know it's not JC, but...
The Revelation, chapter 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bare record of the word of God, and of the testimony of Jesus Christ, and of all things he saw. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. John to the 7 churches which are in Asia, grace be unto you, and peace from him which is, and which was, and which is to come, and from the 7 spirits which are before his throne, and from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten
I'm going to try to get to it, but let's see if I
like
can.
unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a
There it
furnace.
is. Oh, wow. Now
And his
that's the
voice
spirit right there.
went down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle.
Hold on. You know where this is going if you're in this
And
trip.
unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea.
Alright, here it is. What
And I
Yahweh
turned
Shai looks
to see
like.
the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars.
So there you have it. I mean, you know, you know, James Earl Jones reading the New Testament, so you knew he was a Jake, you know. But either way, though, you know, I know that many try to deny that part, but having hair white like wool and feet like unto fine brass as if burned in a furnace is undeniable. It's right there in the scriptures, you know, that he was what, like, you know, again, he had very dark skin, you know. You know, we already know these scriptures, but the fact remains is Esau tries to do everything he can to hide it. Oh, it doesn't mean that he was black. It doesn't mean this or that. It's like, well, we're copper. You know, we're more like copper brown, you know, in essence of, you know, what fine brass looks like. So it would be a dark copper. You know, because you have, you know, as a elder brother Malcolm puts it, you have shades of brown, and you have shades of red. And in the case of the tribe of Yehoiada, we're shades of brown, you know. So like everything else, the curse of leprosy mostly goes upon the Edomites, which is shades of red, you know. And the more the other nations mated with the Edomites, the more they started to become looking like red. Now they still go back to the nations that they are, but they had also lost their purity, because even, you know, well, you can still say a lot of the Persians still have their dark skin, but a good portion of them now, you know, even with that, you know, have lost a lot of it, because of course they were with the Edomites, you know. But, you know, that's another thing. But nonetheless, though, you know, the tribe of Yehoiada, you know, the tribes of Yasharallah, or as the number of the sand of the sea, and there's no denying that. So, getting back to the headlines, right? CNN shared a glimpse of just how bad everything has become for Ukraine. Ukraine armed forces are in the midst of converging crisis caused by the failed counteroffensive, the forcible conscription policy, and Zelensky's cursed blunder, which are leading to more desertions, defeats, and ultimately more desperation. They're humiliated, and they're losing, and they're dying in big numbers. Outgunned and outnumbered, Ukraine's military struggling with low morale and desperation. Yeah, because it's hopeless. It's a hopeless battle. Yeah. And CNN is now admitting that, which is, you know, your mainstream. Ukraine sought deal with Syrian terrorists, and this is coming from Turkish side, right? Kiev reportedly promised to provide Hayat Tahrir al-Sham with dozens of drones in exchange for the release of Chechen and Georgian extremists. Ukraine had secret talks with Syrian terrorists to secure the release of imprisoned militants to be sent to the front line to fight against Russia. Turkish newspaper Antalya reported on Monday, citing local sources. According to the newspaper, Ukrainian delegation traveled to Syria's Idlib province in June to meet with terrorists of the Hayat al-Sham terrorist organization. Extreme security measures were in place during the negotiations, the paper reported. I mean, they're just totally spilling the beans on Kiev, you know, and Ukraine, you know. But like everything else, though, there was a time when Turkey had a deal with the U.S., you know, that they could bring in their terrorists and occupy, and they still have part of that deal, in the Idlib province, right? And that the U.S. would back them, but part of that deal, which the U.S. broke it, was to not arm the PKK or, you know, YPG, which Turkey deems as terrorists, but the U.S. still continued to use them under the Syrian Democratic Forces. So that's how things went to shit between the original deal, which was the Free Syrian Army was a terrorist organization that Turkey and the U.S. had. But the U.S. and its allies still wanted to push the Kurds, which are a direct enemy of Turkey, which is why Turkey is now turning more towards Russia's side and is spilling the beans on a lot of this shit. EU state prime minister accuses world of ignoring Ukraine's Nazi troops. You know, because they are the Nazis. They have been the Nazis for quite some time. The silent tolerance explained by geopolitical considerations, Slovakia's Robert Fico said. People eager to condemn the atrocities committed by the Third Reich are at the same time turning blind eye to Ukraine troops wearing Nazi symbols today, Slovakian Prime Minister has lamented. The head of the government gave a speech at the Holocaust Museum located at the former site of Seri concentration camp on Monday in western Slovakia, in which he highlighted the need to educate new generations about the crimes committed by Nazis during World War II, before bringing up the Ukraine conflict. We talk about fascism, Nazism, while silently tolerating units moving across Ukraine that have a very clear label and are connected to movements that we consider dangerous and forbidden today, since it is a geopolitical fight. Nobody cares, Fico said. But see, you know, when it's convenient for them, they'll ignore things, and when it's convenient for them, then they'll bring it up. Other than that, you know, Amalek always gets away with it because the root word of Ashkenazi is Nazi. So yes, these Amalekites that claim to be a victim of the so-called Holocaust has also at the same time, you know, denied, right? You know, they pretty much have denied Ashkenazi, right? You know, Ashkenazi Jews, right? But they played themselves off of each other, right? Because the Ashkenazi Jews and the Nazis are the same thing. They just want to play victim and get everybody to believe in this hoax of 6 million of them died, right? Want to pay tribute to the victims, not with pathetic speech, but I want to call for action, he added. The international community should recognize that troops using Nazi insignia, who often appear to act as such, cannot fight in Ukraine. Well, like everything else, though, you know, the Azov battalion is very well recognized, and like everything else, though, is accepted. They're just, you know, helping to fight a war, so they're just considered part of Kiev. You know, but it's going to be ignored. Of course it is. But like everything else, though, this is what Putin had to say recently about how the U.S. and allies are provoking arms race. See, hooks are being put into thy jaws, and he's being brought forth because, again, you know, the Cold War and all that is just brought up again, right? The arms race, etc. You know, well, Russia is rising again, as the scriptures told us that Magog would.
Today, in the difficult situation in the world, we see that this is exceptionally important. We see that the United States is trying to preserve its global hegemony, including military hegemony. They're using Ukraine to try and strategically defeat Russia, saying that they are trying to oppose the Russian threat and contain China. They use this as a pretense to expand their military presence on our borders in Asia, in the Asia-Pacific. The US and its allies are openly saying that they are going to station their weapons systems, their missiles, weapons systems in areas close to us, including the Asia-Pacific, including in Europe, etc. They are already testing out the expansion of their military systems in the region. They're trying to destroy and unbalance the balance of powers in the Asia-Pacific. They're provoking an arms race. They're forming the precursors for a dangerous situation in Asia and in the Asia-Pacific. Let me emphasize, Russia has to be prepared for any type of situation, and our armed forces maintain a strong defense of Russian sovereignty and its interests. We'll be prepared to counteract a threat in any area, including on land and on sea, and our Navy plays an important role in that. Our sailors, our seamen have always stood bravely in the defense of their fatherland, and today, during the special military operation, they fight bravely on the front lines. They strike the enemy and defeat the enemy, destroy its military facilities and infrastructure effectively. They performed with valor and professionalism. They're true heroes.
So, like everything else then, they know. And that this whole war is really about trying to build on Russia's borders to try to weaken Russia. But rather, it's backfiring, right? U.S. and UK airstrike on Yemeni school kills and injures several students at Taiz, because of course, like everything else, though, this war is spilling over. The least of the flock drawing them in, right? At least 2 Yemeni students have been killed and 5 others injured following airstrikes by the UK and US warplanes on a school in southern Taiz province. The bombardment targeting Al-Jun school also caused significant damage to nearby buildings. This is nothing more than terrorism, but you wouldn't dare call the US terrorist, would you? The Yemeni armed forces asserted they will not stop their reprisal attacks on unrelenting Israeli ground and aerial offenses in Gaza in. The U.S. had formed a maritime coalition claiming it seeks to protect shipping routes in the Red and Arabian Seas. However, media reports said the coalition falling short of countering Yemen's missile strikes. The Tel Aviv regime so far has killed 41,020 Palestinians, mostly women and children, injuring 94,925 according to the Gaza Health Ministry. And we know that the numbers are even way higher than that, but they just don't got those figures in. War on Lebanon to trigger mass exodus of illegal Israeli terrorist settlers in the north. High-ranking officials of Lebanese Hezbollah resistance movement warned the Israeli of the consequences of waging an all-out war with Lebanon, stressing that large crowds of illegal settlers will have to evacuate the northern side of the 1948 occupied in case of such military confrontation. In other words, they're going to wipe them out. Now, the scriptures does say that the least of flock should draw them in, that their desolations should, that they shall make their habitations desolate with them, right? So, that tells you that the Israeli state is going to be desolate very soon, just like Babylon is. The only difference is we're still going to rebuild in the Israeli state, and we won't call it that anymore, but we are going to rebuild in our land because that is our land. He went on to state Hezbollah's retaliatory strikes against Israeli military sites in the northern occupied lands achieved their objectives, warning the Zionist enemy displaced Israeli settlers cannot return to the northern occupied territories until the war on Gaza winds down. So, pretty much so, the Zionist enemy cannot emerge victorious out of this long war of attrition, he pointed out. So, like everything else, so this is going to draw everyone in. We can see that that's drawing nigh. Dozens of martyrs in a massacre by Israeli occupation in Al-Mawra Khan Yunis. The Israeli occupation terrorists committed on Tuesday a new massacre in the Gaza Strip, which claimed the lives of dozens of martyrs, wounding and missing people. After the occupation aircraft launched a violent airstrike targeting the tents of the displaced Al-Mawasa area in Khan Yunis, south of the Strip. Palestinian media quoted the civil defense as saying more than 40 martyrs and 60 wounded were recovered after 3 hours of rescue operations for the victims of the massacre, most of whom were children and women, with a large number still missing, noting that there are entire families who disappeared in the sand to the concussion missiles. And I got one more here before I close this thing out. That is the YouTube portion of this. I do have a longer version of this because there's just certain things I cannot talk about here on YouTube, but going to close this out nonetheless because we are in the times though that indeed you can see everything getting ready, because these are the things that we said would tarry but now longer tarry, right? Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 2. The Most High answered and said, write the vision, make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it. What's this talk about? Well, when they ask you how was Shai, which shall be the sign of the times and of the end, right? And he told you, he laid out the groundwork, right? He said, make it plain upon tables, because this reiterates what Yahweh Shai had also told, right? For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and not tarry. You know? And what's that talking about? Well, that's talking about the end of Esau Edom. You know? And how Amalek's going to draw them into this war. But also, pretty much, though, that they'll come close to achieving their new world order. But will not succeed, because the Most High is going to lift a standard against it. Behold, the soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. You know, that's talking about Edomites, Esau, Edom. But the just shall live by his faith, and that is the righteous of the nation of Yashalah, because 2/3 are going to follow Esau, you know, into the grave. Pretty much going to be caught in that lake of fire. Yea, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges desire as hell, and as death cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. You know, and that is because, you know, he wants to keep his fortress in everything, right? You know, how long has Iraq been telling Esau to withdraw, but Esau still stays there under the guise of fighting ISIS, which they created. You know, supposedly they're supposed to withdraw in 2025, I don't believe it, but that's what they claim, is that they are going to withdraw in 2025. But that's not what these scriptures say. They totally differ with what they're trying to say, right? So not all these take up a parable against him, and taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that of which is not his, and to how long, right? You know, that is, you know, how long is our presence going to be here, right? You know, and he doesn't belong here, basically. And to him that layeth himself with thick clay, meaning that worthless bounce checks that can't pay for anything, because this devil steals, he takes, and he doesn't ever pay you back. You know? That's like somebody who always is bumming money off of you, but he has no intention on paying you back, but he still wants more and more. That's Esau to a T. So hopefully this has been edifying, and like everything else, so, you know, got one more here, and then close this YouTube portion out, and then got more on the longer version.
A significant goodwill gesture by Iran's western neighbor Iraq to relocate the Kamala, a militant group long active in the pursuit of separating Iranian Kurdish regions. Of course, the much anticipated measure came under a security agreement signed back in March last year between Tehran and Baghdad, and now saw Iranian and Iraqi forces coordinating the transfer.
And we know that Kurdistan is a broken promise, but they use that to arm terrorist groups in that region to keep maintaining the presence there. That's where most of the U.S. bases are, in the Kurdish regions. And for some reason it's not playing.
Security agreement signed back in March last year between Tehran and Baghdad, and now saw Iranian and Iraqi forces coordinating the transfer of these militants from their camps on the Iran-Iraq border in the Iraqi semi-autonomous Kurdistan region to a new camp in Surdash, effectively removing them from their previous bases near the Iranian border. This operation was executed with full backing from various Iranian agencies, including the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps. Of course, for years, Iran has designated the Kamala as a terrorist organization due to its separatist agenda and history of violence, including assassinations within Iran since the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. Tehran has long demanded that the Iraqi government disarm these militants, citing concerns over the Kamala's activities, which reportedly included blackmailing locals and forcibly recruiting child soldiers. While the Kamala have long been active, it has recently come under the spotlight for its support for the 2022 protests in Iran over the death of Mahsa Amini, a Kurdish woman in police custody over her hijab. The Kamala actively participated in an extensive media coverage fueling the protest in Iran, and then the Iranian government accuses Mahsa Amini's cousin of being a Peshmerga. Of course, that's a term used to refer to members of the Kamala. The country also accuses the Kamala of importing arms into Iran. Since September 2022, the IRGC has launched several airstrikes against the group's positions in Iraq and has accused them of having links to Mossad. So Iran finally fulfilled Iran's demand to keep the group away away from breathing down Iran's neck. This strategic move comes as Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is planning to pay a visit to Iraq. It's his first international trip since taking office in July. Now he's heading to Baghdad at the invitation of Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani. During this visit, the two countries are expected to sign memoranda of understanding on cooperation and, of course, security.
We are preparing for the President's visit to Iraq. This trip is significant due to Iraq's role in addressing Iran's issues with neighboring countries, including Saudi Arabia. Baghdad has made efforts to normalize relations with Jordan, Egypt, and several other countries. We have deep and long-standing relations with Iraq.
Since taking office, Pezeshkian has vowed to prioritize strengthening ties with neighboring countries, and putting Iraq as his first trip sends a lot of messages. Relations between Iran and Iraq, both Shiite majority nations, have recently grown significantly closer. Tehran is one of Iraq's leading trade partners, and more importantly, it wields considerable political influence in Baghdad, particularly as its allies dominate parliament and the current government. And all of this comes as the Iran-backed Iraqi resistance forces, Hashd al-Shaabi, have been targeting American bases in the region amid the Israeli war on Gaza. It appears that the U.S. actually can no longer resist calls for withdrawal of its forces from the Arab country. Iran has been calling for this. The Iraqi parliament has also passed it into law, and now, especially amid the U.S.'s support for Israel, everyone is turning this screw on Washington, believing that its military presence in Iraq is a source of insecurity. And now we heard that the U.S. has reached a deal with Iraq to withdraw hundreds of troops by September 2025, with a complete exit expected by the end of 2026. So the U.S. is packing up, and Iran is poised to build stronger relations with its neighbor. This will definitely reshape the landscape of the entire region, especially as Iraq appears to be warmly welcoming this new dynamic.
And so, like everything else, though, ties are being built, and of course, Iraq has been asking for the U.S. terrorists to withdraw, and they never do, right? Under the guise of fighting ISIS, which we already know who ISIS is. They're Mossad agents, Israeli secret intelligence services. So hopefully this has been edifying. But I want to say, Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakal Kadosh, Wa Abab Babal. Rakatham Gilful Lek. Check out the longer length on Odysee, Rumble, and BitChute. Shalom.